What Bolsonaro couldn't do was freeze the minimum wage. But for 4 years, there was no real increase in the minimum wage. Bolsonaro tried to end the PIS PASEP and the wage bonus. It was there in the text of the pension reform. I know because I studied it, I explained it. I have more than 1,000 live streams and videos where I explained it. The 2019 pension reform, which is a catastrophe for workers. Many workers will find out when they go to apply for their retirement, and they will find out that they need to be older to retire and that they need to work more to be able to retire. Yes, and the calculation method has also changed for the worse, so they will receive less than they would have if they had retired before November 2019. Survivor's pension, there are many people who will only find out that they are not entitled to a survivor's pension. When their spouse passes away and they go to apply for the benefit, they will find out that they are not entitled to it. Because of the changes that started under the Temer administration and were approved and worsened under the Bolsonaro administration during the pension reform. So they did it. Everything they could do, they did. Many situations were so bad for the workers that the National Congress itself overturned them. And Flávio, as he himself said, he is pure blood. He is more of the same and very little different from Bolsonaro. That's why he's hiding his intentions. Yeah, he's trying to cover it up, trying to hold it back. Bye. But that's what he's going to do. That's what he has to offer. That's it. That's the Bolsonaros through and through. Then Bolsonaro loses 100,000 followers per month on his social media. It's the meltdown, right? Actually, it's not even a meltdown. It's Bolsonaro's digital death, right? Bolsonaro is dying on social media. After all, he's just a prisoner now, right? Who will have to serve his 27 years and 3 months in prison. And even Flávio Bolsonaro is also losing a lot of followers. And he's losing followers because of this scandal involving Banco Master and everything else. And this is just the beginning, right? Of the revelations that will come out day after day. And also because of his attitude, right? Of being a traitor to the country, against PIS, against PX, trying to weaken the federal police, as I just explained to you. And with his alliances there with people from the Red Command, from criminal organizations, all of this is coming to light, right? As I told you, Didipo, it's always just the beginning. So Flávio is melting down politically, Bolsonaro is fading online. And the more the truth comes out, the clearer this reality will become. And you can be sure that Lula will win the 4th time. Lula will win again. Because there's no one better, right? And Flávio Bolsonaro is the most corrupt son. A lot will still be revealed about this criminal family. The federal police is expected to ask the United States to disclose the Ravel Ravengate Fund's records. It could link Eduardo and Flávio Bolsonaro to the master case and the PCC. The federal police will ask the United States authorities to disclose the Ravel Ravengate Fund's records, which received at least $10.6 million, about $61 million from Daniel Boccaro from Banco Master, supposedly to finance the movie Dark Horse, which presents the ultra-far-right narrative about Jair Messias Bolsonaro. The hard part is getting the United States to cooperate, right? The United States is on a mission to accuse innocent people and defend criminals, right? Because if you really want to fight the Red Command, you have to go after the political allies of the Red Command who are there in Rio de Janeiro and whose main base is the political group of Flávio Bolsonaro himself, right? So let's look at this situation now. It has to be requested. We need to know where that money went. More than 61 million reais in public money was stolen by Daniel Boccaro. It went to this fund, which is managed by Paulo Carlisto, Eduardo Bolsonaro's lawyer. Where did that money go? It went to this fund, yes, we know that. But from this fund, where did that money go? No. This lifting of confidentiality is extremely important. Extremely important. Was it really for the movie? Could it really have been for the movie? Who is funding Eduardo Bolsonaro? Last year, I even told you guys living in the United States is very expensive. We need to find out what is the source of funding for Eduardo Bolsonaro. Who is funding Eduardo Bolsonaro? If we find out who is funding Eduardo Bolsonaro, we will find out who is in this criminal organization. I honestly just never imagined that there would be a connection with the biggest banking fraud. Brazil, which is Banco Master, which is Daniel Vorcado, who also stole from retirees and pensioners. He's also involved in the INSS fraud. That's why I believe the problem goes much deeper, and that the Bolsonaro family is involved both in the Banco Master fraud and in the INSS fraud. And it was exactly to fill Daniel Vorcado's fund. The more his fund filled up, the more money this Havergate fund would have. Raise the film would receive. And the film is also, obviously, by all indications, a kind of money laundering operation. So much so that DCM did a story saying that the film received, actually not the film, it wasn't the film. Karina. Karina is the only partner and owner of Bolsonaro's film production company that had never made a film before. Interesting, isn't it? Looks like the production company was formed solely to make Bolsonaro's film. Interesting, isn't it? And she is the sole owner of Go Up, the production company for the film. This Karina, she also has an NGO that works with culture and so on. And we already know that she had a contract with the Sao Paulo City Hall. We know for 108 million that there were 2 or 3 contributions, reaching almost 160 million reais. We already know that she also had a contract with Ibanez Rocha, former governor of the federal district, all Bolsonaro supporters. And now DCM found out that she has contracts with several other government entities, several others, various municipalities and states, which could amount to a lot, really a lot of money. Who? The producer of the movie. The coincidence, guys, I don't know. Just like Mario Frias. It's not here. Look, the company Dark Horse has contracts with more than 50 municipalities. The businesswoman Karina Ferreira da Gama, partner of Federal Deputy Mario Frias, former Minister of Culture under Bolsonaro and producer of the film Dark Horse, signed contracts and received public funds from at least 51 municipalities and states across the 5 regions of the country. The amounts range from over 100 million to tens of thousands of reais, and the contracts were signed between public entities, such as the state of São Paulo, the federal district, the municipalities of Babaçulândia in Tocantins, Cascavel in Paraná, Macapá in Amapá, and Redenção do Gurgueia in Piauí. So the company had contracts spread across almost all of Brazil, worth millions of reais with municipal and state entities. And all of this will become the subject of an investigation. Because these are situations that range from book fairs to go-kart races. Like, to set up Wi-Fi. And is it some kind of all-purpose company? Rave party. And how did she manage to win the contract through a public bidding process? Was it because, or was there no bidding? Because when you're going to contract with a government agency, that agency, except in very rare cases, has to open a bidding process so companies can qualify. The companies want to provide the service and they show they are qualified Usually, the most renowned, most experienced, most affordable, and most qualified companies are chosen, and even more specialized in that area. And Karina's company was multifunctional. It wasn't specialized, it was whatever came up and whatever she managed to win the bid for, she would do it. So, like, you can investigate the bidding process, guys, and there will be fraud in the bidding process. In the case of São Paulo, she won a contract to provide a service she had never provided before. And it's to provide internet signal via Wi-Fi for underprivileged communities, 5,000 access points. She doesn't have a company for that kind of service. So much so that later she subcontracted the service. What is this, guys? Have you ever seen anything like this? It's already known that several invoices were falsified. And to this day, she hasn't completed all the work. And the quality is questionable. So because for many companies, the dream of many companies in Brazil is to win a public contract. Why? Because there's money. The government has money. And there are companies that become multimillionaires with government contracts. But for you to win a public bid, if that process is fair and without fraud, it's very difficult. And how did Karina keep winning? Okay. What is this? This is personal favoritism, illegal favoritism, it's procurement fraud for money laundering. The more companies, the more arrangements, the more front men, the more transactions to launder money, the better. And she, I repeat, is the producer of the movie. She solely owns and produces the movie through her production company. To make things worse, she has an NGO. This NGO is also under investigation for receiving money from legislative earmarks, including from Mario Frias, who seems to be her partner. Maybe he's what we call in law an undisclosed partner. What's that? When someone can't be a partner in a certain situation, they become a hidden partner, a sham partner. They find a front person to fill the spot. But everything I'm telling you, the federal police know it inside out. The civil police too, everyone knows. And it has to be investigated. And the more they investigate, the more companies show up, more contracts show up, more money shows up. What is that? Money laundering, a major scheme. That can only happen because there are public officials, congressmen, mayors, city councilors, governors, senators involved. Otherwise, it's not possible. We had the police. And there's no shortage of politicians in this story, right, Flávio? Oh, it's a shame. The Dark Horse Company has contracts with more than 50 municipalities. That's what DCM found out. It's very serious. Meanwhile, Nunes Marques, she will be the rapporteur at the TSC for cases about Dark Horse. Look here. The production is at the center of a controversy after it was revealed that Daniel Vorcaro, owner of the now defunct Banco Master, financed the project at the request of Senator Flávio Bolsonaro, presidential pre-candidate. What's happening? What case is this, Andrea, at the TSC? TSC, as we know, is the Electoral Court. It deals with electoral matters. So the TSC was called upon to assess whether this film would be considered a type of political propaganda or not if it's shown before the election. Did you understand? And can the TSC block the showing of this film before the election? Yes, it can. If the TSC, finds that it's a kind of electoral propaganda, right? Disguised as a movie, the TSC can ban the showing of the film before the elections, okay? And the TSC was called upon for this analysis. And by random draw, the rapporteur happens to be the president of the Superior Electoral Court, Nunes Marques. He is the rapporteur. The ones who will decide are the 7 justices. The panel of 7 justices of the TSC will decide whether this film can be shown or not before the election. Did you understand? In fact, the highlighted questions, Central will sort them out and I will answer at 8 p.m. today, okay? If you put a highlighted question here, I will answer that question in a video at 8 p.m. today, okay? The link will be in the first comment. Well, and Central, please also put the link to the channel where I will answer the questions. So what happens? What happens is he is the rapporteur in this matter, right? Nunes Marquez. Then you ask me, Andrea, do you think this movie is electoral propaganda for Bolsonaro, in this case for Flávio Bolsonaro, or not? Obviously, yes. I believe that's the case. Yes, it's a kind of electoral propaganda for Flávio Bolsonaro, especially because the movie is framed from a perspective that benefits the Bolsonaros, right? As if they were being persecuted, poor unfortunate souls, persecuted and so on. So without a doubt, it's a kind of campaign propaganda, okay? And in my opinion, this movie shouldn't be shown before the elections. Can it be shown? Yes, it can. Starting in November. Before the elections, I don't think so. I believe it's a kind of electoral propaganda. And what can also carry weight and should only be considered and analyzed in this context is the issue of funding, right? The issue of funding, of money for the film isn't clear, if it was even for the film. So that's the aspect I believe needs to be analyzed by the TSC as well. Okay? Okay? Now, I don't know what most of the justices are going to decide. Not even I know what Nunes Marquez is going to decide. But for me, it is indeed electoral propaganda. And his broadcast should be blocked before the election period. Can it air? Yes, starting November. Whoever wants to can go there and watch it. That's it. End of story. But at the same time, I see another aspect as well, which is the social aspect. What do you mean, Andrea? This movie, when we talk about the movie, we immediately think of Vorcaro. And maybe this association isn't positive for Flávio. Do you understand? And it could be that airing this film, if authorized by the TSC, could actually backfire. Because when we see the film, when we hear people talking about it, when we see the posters, it's going to be almost spontaneous. We will remember the money, more than 60 million in public funds that was stolen by Daniel Vocaro, who is involved in this film. If it even went into the film, do you understand? So socially, I even foresee a negative aspect. And honestly, if I were from the Bolsonaro family, I wouldn't want this film to be released before the election, because I believe people will make that association. When we watch the film, when we see anything from the film, we'll remember the millions that were stolen, the retirees, the pensioners, and they were stolen from retirees and pensioners by Daniel Vorcaro. From the pension funds of retirees, pensioners, public servants from Rio de Janeiro to the clients of BRB, who were also robbed with more than 12 billion stolen in public money. So I think that airing it could also end up backfiring socially, exactly because of that association. Stolen money, where Flávio Bolsonaro kept demanding it from Daniel Vorcaro. So there are these two aspects that, for me, it's a lose-lose situation no matter what. Because there's no way out. There's no way to escape. They bet really big. And I think everything is going to fall apart. Literally, for everyone, including Flávio Bolsonaro. Let's take a look at some statements, which is always important.
There have been two plea bargains that will destroy, implode this hypocritical Bolsonarist right. Forget it. I'm not going to stay here on my social media demanding honesty from the PT, demanding honesty from Lula. No, no. I have no connection with the PT. I have no connection with Lula. Now I identify with the right, actually with the real right. Not this right that disguised itself as God, homeland, and family. But that, in reality, is just as corrupt or even more corrupt than the groups that over the years they pointed fingers at, saying they were allies of corruption. There are 2 plea bargains coming that will destroy, implode this right wing. Well,
Daniel Vocaro's plea bargain, I don't believe it, as I've already explained. Now, there's Rodrigo Bacelar's testimony. Rodrigo Bacelar, former state deputy of Rio de Janeiro, former president of the Legislative Assembly of Rio de Janeiro, a close political ally of Flávio Bolsonaro, is in prison for involvement in corruption, money laundering, fraud, and bidding fraud, and with involvement with the militia and Red Command. Flávio must be really worried, afraid of this testimony. Actually, I believe this plea bargain could be even more explosive than Daniel Vocaro's, because Daniel Vocaro is artificial and slippery. What do you mean, Andre, by plastic? Just look at the photos of Daniel Vocaro on social media. Type Daniel Vocaro and select images, search. He's artificial, he's simulated. He's, articulate like that. So he's slippery. And whatever he can try to get away with, he will, so that later on he can have advantages, especially with high-ranking politicians, right? But in the case of Rodrigo Bacelar, he's already screwed either way. Do you understand? So I think his testimony, Rodrigo Bacelar's, will be more explosive and reveal more schemes, especially in Rio de Janeiro, than Daniel Vocaro's. Daniel Vocaro, to me, once again, is just trying to sweet talk the federal police, and I don't think he'll succeed. All right, so let's wait and see. I'll say it again, highlight your question, and I'll answer your question in a video today at 8 p.m., okay? Highlight it. There's a link that I'll answer at 8 p.m. on the other channel, all right? Just highlight your question and I'll answer it there at 8 p.m. today. For those who are here, look on the WhatsApp channel. You just need to have WhatsApp and I'll send the link so you don't miss it. If you're not on the channel, you might miss it because I can't send you the link right when I'm about to start answering the questions, okay? Should we see another comment about everything that's happening and everything that's going to happen?
June 16th trial of Eduardo Bolsonaro. For me, he will be convicted, sentenced to prison. There will be an Interpol red notice. He will try to escape, ask for asylum, political asylum. But it happens at a very important moment, guys. At a time when they are conspiring against Brazil again. He openly says that he called for the Magnitsky Act against the Supreme Court justices, tariffs. Look, all of this started with my initiative. I was the leader of the PT. I filed the complaint with the Attorney General's office on May 22, 2025 to open the investigation against him. All that campaign against Brazil, tariffs, the Magnitsky Act, on May 26th, the Attorney General's office opened the investigation.
Guys, this is very important. It's a victory, you see.
On Thursday, I had filed a criminal complaint against Eduardo Bolsonaro. Today, on Monday, the Attorney General's office opened an investigation against him.
I submitted several documents and evidence against Eduardo Bolsonaro. So in this eagerness to continue this coup attempt to try to protect his father during the trial, he is putting Brazil in a very difficult situation.
But there's more, folks. I have requested that Flávio Jair Bolsonaro be included in this trial because there was that money that was supposed to be for a movie, but we know it wasn't really for a movie. Well, it's Alguma, which went to the Raven Gate Fund managed by Eduardo Bolsonaro. So Flávio Bolsonaro is also involved in this conspiracy. Our assessment is that this money was used to finance the stay of Eduardo Bolsonaro and other fugitives, but it was to conspire against Brazil with the hiring of a law firm, of lobbying firms in the United States in that campaign against Brazil. June 16th.
Yeah, June 16th will be the trial of Eduardo Bolsonaro for the crime of coercion in the course of legal proceedings. And I understand that he will be unanimously sentenced to almost 9 years in prison. And also on the 24th, there will be the trial of Bolsonaro's appeal at the Superior Military Court, where he will soon be convicted and expelled from the armed forces and will lose his rank of captain. On June 24th, the TSC scheduled the trial of the appeal in which Bolsonaro tries to remove the STM ministers, but he won't succeed. He's just trying to buy time and stall the process, right? Former director of Master becomes a defendant in a federal police case for arranging $4 billion in investments with the government of Rio de Janeiro. Diego Maciel is mentioned in the audit report conducted by SEDAI for having participated in a meeting on May 17, 2023 between representatives of Master and members of CADAI's financial board. The Claudio Castro government authorized a total of $4 billion in investments in Banco Master. Actually, it will be more. But wait, Andre, what do you mean? Guys, Rio de Janeiro, just like the federal district, and for me now, you know, the amounts are passed on to Karina. They are the three main coordinators of this criminal organization, together with Daniel Vorka. At first, we knew that the government of Rio de Janeiro, led by Claudio Castro, who had his mandate revoked and was declared ineligible, the TSE even confirmed his impeachment and ineligibility. Soon, given this whole situation, we will find out that it's actually many more billions. At first, we knew that he had injected almost 1 billion reais. Later, we found out that he injected almost 3 billion reais into Banco Master Claudio Castro. And now we already know that it was more than 4 billion reais. You can expect that more will come. This is the evidence, and the federal police found out the government of Rio de Janeiro injected more. Just like Ibanez Rocha from the federal district, Bolsonaro injected more than 12 billion. And it's more than 12 billion Rio de Janeiro will also have invested. No, they will have shoved the public money, many billions of reais, up Daniel Vorka's devilish ass. What does the federal police need to find out? The return of that money as bribes. Inject public money into Banco Master so that later Master returns the money and pays the big monthly bribe, the big kickback. That's what the federal police wants to find out. That's what they're after. And in the middle of this whole bunch of crooks, Bolsonaro's movie enters the picture, which from all indications was used for money laundering, including all this fraud. But the one who will actually say this for real is the federal police through their investigations. Let's see another statement here.
Let's see. If there's a scorched earth scenario, at least I'll be avenged. Whose quote is that? Eduardo Bolsonaro, when asked if Trump's 50% tariffs on Brazil went forward and broke the Brazilian economy. And also about Donald Trump's attack on pigs. That was Eduardo Bolsonaro's response in the interview. And I remember that yesterday, Flávio went viral, precisely because of the Bolsonaro family's influence behind this scorched earth strategy. And Marco Rubio, some people call him Marco Dumbio, because he has these huge ears, right? They go from one side to the other. Marco Rubio is the son of Cuban immigrants. And for a long time, he said that his family had fled Fidel Castro's bloody dictatorship in Cuba. But actually, his family fled from another dictatorship, Fulgencio Batista, who was the dictator allied with the United States. His family fled a Cuban dictator and moved to the United States unrelated to Fidel Castro. Still, he claimed for years they escaped the Castros. And actually, his family fled in 56, and the Cuban Revolution was in 59. The main point is Marco Rubio is actually the main architect of the policies aimed at turning Latin America into the backyard of the United States. It's a phrase said by Pete Hexa, and he really pushes truly aggressive, destabilizing policies against countries that aren't being friendly by his own account. It's interesting. What is a friendly country? That country that bows its head to everything that will soon say, okay, PIX is getting in the way of American companies because it competes with MasterCard, credit card, American Express. So let's do this. Let's get rid of PIX because it's hurting the US economy. Is that what we're going to do to be a friendly country? Because after all, Brazil has made every possible gesture to try to mitigate the problems. In fact, the trade balance is much more favorable to the United States than to Brazil. And everything they pointed out in that report that Brazil is doing, and that's why Brazil has to be hit with tariffs. In the United States, it's 10 times worse. Do you remember that TikTok was banned from operating in the United States? Donald Trump banned TikTok from operating. He simply censored TikTok, and it had to make a series of adjustments to be able to operate in the United States. This is one of the arguments they use to try to hit Brazil with tariffs, saying that Brazil is interfering with the sovereignty of the United States. This also applies to bribery, which was legalized in the United States by a decree from Donald Trump. So everything they point out in Brazil, they do even worse there, and their real goal is to destabilize our economy, especially now that Brazil has been showing consistent economic data, and for us to go back to being, in fact, the backyard of the United States. And Marco Rubio is one of the main actors in this regard, so it's natural that President Lula calls him exactly what he is. If there is
right? And we can't help but mention, right, the issue with PIX, guys, how crazy these people are, right? These people root against Brazil. They want the worst for Brazil and the best for the United States, and they call themselves patriots. These people are crazy. They are traitors to the country. Want to get rid of pigs? Go to hell. You and that whole bunch of Americans who think they're superior to us, but they're not. These Bolsonaro supporters have such a huge inferiority complex, let me tell you. Sometimes I look at it and I keep thinking, guys, how is this even possible? It went down so badly for Eduardo Bolsonaro. That thing he said needed to be replaced, right? He suggested replacing PIX with Zelle from the United States, which are two completely different things. Then he demanded a retraction from Globo because Globo said that but he did say it, right? Oh, go to hell, people. Then he says he's a patriot. Go to hell. Go take a hike or something.